This new law is banning homeless people in Florida. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments saying, how can Florida do this to homeless people? But if you own a home in Florida, this law is really going to help you, regardless of if you agree with it or not. Because this new law is going to have a major impact on real estate values and the price of your home. The first thing you need to know is the word homeless is designed to be very misleading. When I say homeless, you think of a single mother who's lost her job and is forced out onto the streets. If someone could only help her and give her a job, she could be right back up on her feet, right? Well, that's wrong. That's not a correct representation of the mass majority of the people living on the streets. But that's what liberal-leaning states that have adopted these pay the homeless policies want you to believe. So what's Florida doing? This new law went into effect October 1st. It's also known as the Unauthorized Public Camping and Public Sleeping Bill. That law makes it illegal to sleep or camp on public property in Florida. This includes streets, sidewalks, parks, and public buildings. Under the law, cities and counties are required to provide temporary shelters for people experiencing homelessness. These shelters must offer drug and mental health treatments, but you also need to be sober to use these shelters. So this law does not make being homeless illegal. It makes sleeping on public property illegal, no matter who you are. Starting on January 1st, 2025, citizens can actually sue cities for not enforcing this law. Now, Florida was just hit with 2 major hurricanes, and the state took that into consideration. They do not enforce this law during hurricanes or major natural disasters. Now, people got a lot to say about this new law, as I'm sure you can guess. I just shot a video about this on TikTok, and there were a lot of people that were pissed off, but there were a lot more people that were happy about this. Let's check out what some of the people said. Tall, Tan, and Handsome says, I can't believe I gotta say that about another dude. As a veteran, there are countless programs for the homeless, one of which they give you an apartment and a job. However, the one requirement is you being clean. That's the problem with the homeless. That does seem to be the major issue, and we're going to go into this a lot more. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning, where that homeless word can be very deceiving. There's a lot of people out there that do need help, but there's a lot of people out there that don't want it. John Bowden 493 says, well, maybe instead of sending trillions of dollars to other countries, we should help the homeless in our country first. How many homes can we build for just $1 trillion, okay? I'm with you, John. I agree with this 100%, but I believe America should help Americans. And these homeless are American citizens, and they do need our help. The ones that are homeless by circumstance, not by choice. Gary 909 says, homelessness is not a crime. Overpriced housing is. And Gary, you're actually right. Homelessness is not a crime, and that's not what this bill in Florida is doing. It is not saying you can't be homeless. You can. You just can't sleep on public streets. Now, I want to talk about the overpriced housing is a crime. That's what Gary says. And my reply to Gary is, anything that's overpriced does not sell. So if you look at the housing market over the last few years, it has gone up and you've been paying a lot more for homes. So a lot of people are saying, well, it's overpriced. But here's the thing, people have been buying. If I have a $500,000 home and I try to sell it for $2 million, you're gonna say that's overpriced and nobody would be buying that house. That's the definition of overpriced. But if I have a $500,000 home and I sell it for $600,000 and people are buyers and there are people that want that home, it's not overpriced. It might be an inflated price to some, but in this market, people want to buy it. So in actuality, it's not overpriced. And prices now in Florida are starting to come down. And Vozy1216 says, I hope they also made a law to provide free housing for the homeless, right? Where are they supposed to go? Let me ask you watching this video, do you live in a free house? Do you pay taxes? Do you contribute to society? I'm sure you do, and nobody's giving you anything for free. So why should we give free housing to people that haven't earned it? I think there should be programs in place that help people that want to be helped, but I don't think that someone that's made a decision to check out of society and stop contributing should be getting free housing when you and I still have to work our ass off to provide. But the city of San Francisco agreed with VOSI 1216, and they thought, you know what? We should be giving these people free housing or a free place to stay, and we should also pay them. But let's get back to the word homeless and how it's designed to be misleading. This is a clip from Michael Schellenberger about the movie he shot, San Francisco. It talks about the homeless population in San Francisco. Check it out.
The word homeless is a propaganda word. It's been around for decades, but it was really used in the 1980s by progressive activists to demand more subsidized housing. And they used people who were on the street suffering from drug addiction or untreated mental illness as reasons for more housing. And part of the reason that you would use the word homeless is it suggests that the underlying problem is lack of housing, expensive rents, or poverty. And that's not the case.
So basically we're throwing everybody into one big pot and putting the term homelessness on them.
The two groups that are in the biggest trouble that are living on the street are people suffering from untreated mental illness and people suffering from drug addiction. Sometimes they're the same people, sometimes they're different people. There's people with schizophrenia that live on the street, but there's also just people that got addicted to heroin or meth, that have become disaffiliated, alienated from friends and family, in part because they've stolen money from them or borrowed money from them and not paid it back and basically been kicked out of their homes.
I'm sure we all know people like that or have come across them. We've probably been good friends with them at some point and probably let them sleep on your couch at some point.
To mix up those people with, say, the mother escaping an abusive husband is just irresponsible. There's people that do suffer hard times and they need some financial help. We do a pretty good job of helping those people. They don't need the same thing that people that are addicted to heroin and meth need.
So there's two different buckets is what he's saying. The people that have drug addictions and mental health issues, and the people who have lost their jobs and need some financial help and want to get out of that situation. So why is Florida passing this law? There's some people out there that think we should just leave the homeless alone and let people sleep wherever they want, and this situation will just work itself out. But here's the truth, that will not happen. We do not want Florida to turn into what has happened in San Francisco. Let me show you, but be warned, this is pretty graphic and it's downright insane that this is happening in a major city. Check it out.
This is San Francisco, the city that pays drug addicts to use drugs?
I mean, if we're gonna be realistic, they pay you to be homeless here. I get $620 a month, dude. This right now is literally by choice.
How many times have you died?
About 40 times last year.
Almost a handful of times. I've died on my feet, standing in one spot.
This is just wild. San Francisco was a beautiful city, and now they're paying people to live on the streets.
Record high overdose deaths in 2023, rampant homelessness, deadly drug addiction, and unpunished shoplifting and car break-ins. Businesses are fleeing and the city is dying.
Did you know you can't go into a store in San Francisco and buy razor blades or toothpaste or deodorant? They got it locked up behind a case because people are allowed to come in and steal under $1,000 and they don't even get arrested for it.
Majority of everybody out here that you think is homeless, a lot of them ain't homeless. They got homes to go to. They got family houses. They got friend houses. Some of them even got husbands or wives' houses. They just can't do their drugs there, so they decide to come live on the streets and do it.
What's going on with him, do you think?
I don't know. He needs help. He needs help. Serious help. Look, he got bugs tearing his body up. That's why he got all those sores like that.
Now, I never knew this, but when you see people bent over at the waist like that, that's because they've shot up fentanyl. And for some reason, it makes them do this. That's why they call the people that do this zombies. This is so sad, and I feel so bad for these people, but it's important to see what the policies in San Francisco have created and why Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is saying that will not happen here. Since 2019, California has spent $24 billion on homelessness. But in this 5-year period, homelessness has increased by 30,000 people. Now they have around 181,000 people that are homeless. How can this be? San Francisco actually created this problem by paying people to be homeless. And they also provided them with brand new tents to sleep in on the streets. They gave people clean needles and drug kits, and they didn't arrest them for shooting up, stealing, or sleeping on the street. That encourages people with drug problems or people that just don't want to work to come on out and sleep on the streets. Why wouldn't they? But let me take you back to how it all started. This video is from 3 years ago. Check it out.
And in a crazy report out of San Francisco, the city set up tent sites for homeless people and ended up spending $61,000 a year for each tent, or more than $5,000 a month per tent.
The San Francisco Chronicle reports that's more than 2.5 times the average price of a one-bedroom apartment. The program, called Safe Sleeping Villages, has cost taxpayers $16.1 million since its inception at the beginning of the pandemic.
$16.1 million paid by taxpayers, and they're still paying to this very day.
So there are 6 of these so-called villages set up around the city with 252 tents in parking lots, essentially. Residents there get 24-hour security, bathrooms, maintenance, and 3 meals a day. It was, of course, an attempt to get people out of indoor shelters when the pandemic hit, but has received criticism from all kinds of groups across every spectrum of the political aisle, as you can probably imagine.
The city thought it would be covered by FEMA, but apparently it's not, so the price falls back to the city and, of course, the taxpayer.
The people that are making these crazy policies in San Francisco need to be voted out of office, because San Francisco has now turned homelessness into a bureaucracy by creating government jobs and paying caseworkers over $100,000 to deal with the homeless. And sometimes one homeless person can have 2 caseworkers. Those are 2 jobs that were created out of thin air and are getting paid $200,000 total a year to help this one person out of homelessness that might not want to even be helped. So they're creating these government jobs, but they're not actually helping the homeless or reducing the homeless population. They're just spending taxpayer dollars. Now you can see why Florida wants to get ahead of this before it gets out of control. But what does this mean for real estate in Florida? So the homeless crisis, but really, can we call it a crisis when these cities have created it and encouraged it, has destroyed the value of real estate in San Francisco, and we are not going to allow that to happen in Florida.
I'm back in San Francisco after 2 years to see what is happening with this city. Real estate in downtown seems hopeless. The price of this building in 2016 was $62 million.
And it just sold for only $6.5 million.
That's a 90% drop in price.
In my city in St. Petersburg, Florida, they're developing a beautiful Class A apartment building called the Bellamy at Whitney Village. They're building 325 Class A apartment buildings and developing 32,000 square feet of retail space, including office, shops, and restaurants. It's going to be walkable only, so no cars, and it's going to be a beautiful addition to our city. But right across the street, there's a bus terminal, and you'd usually find 20 to 30 homeless people hanging out or sleeping on the streets. At one point, they had mattresses there, and it looked like a giant campsite. And with these new apartment buildings in, the word on the street was the owner was trying to get this bus terminal moved, because if 67% of homeless people are dealing with some sort of mental illness, according to US News, who wants to pay $3,000 to $5,000 a month for an apartment when you have to worry about your safety when you step outside onto the street? Not me, but I do believe this new law is going to help with that. Believe me, people move to Florida for the sunshine and the beaches for sure. I did, but they also move for quality of life, jobs, and safety. If they don't feel safe in their cities and neighborhoods, people are going to start moving out. And that means the value of our Florida homes is going to go bye-bye. Take a look at what these people said on my TikTok video. Matt Kerr says, I live downtown in a city and I can't stand dealing with the homeless down here. My girlfriend can't even walk our dog by herself without feeling unsafe. This is great news, and Ohio needs to follow also. So what I just explained about the bus station is not an isolated incident just to Florida. It's happening all around the country, and I suspect other states are gonna start doing something about it as well. No sleeves in the keys. I love that handle, man. That's awesome. My small beach town has so many homeless people, and it wasn't this way 10 years ago. If we can send billions to other countries, why can't we help our own? I agree, this should be a no-brainer. Focus on Americans first. This is especially a tragedy when it's happening to veterans and they're getting no help. Here's one from user 86092379. And she says, yesterday it was scary to get into and out of my Publix without being scared of the group of homeless people. I am 5'1" and a woman. Now, if you live in Florida, you know that a lot of homeless people in the city like to congregate around Publix. And sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable walking by them. So I know exactly what she's talking about. But I really believe this could be solved if the government cared as much as they say they do. Now, I really don't have all the answers because I am a real estate investor, but I truly don't believe paying people to live on the streets is the answer. We saw what happened in San Francisco, and what you don't discourage, you encourage. But by now, there are more than 650,000 people that are homeless. That's a 12% increase from 2022, and that's the biggest increase since 2007 when they started actually keeping records about this. So it's only getting worse. Now, if just money could fix this issue, let me put it into perspective on how fast the government could fix it. The US just gave Ukraine close to $200 billion. Now, if you gave that money to every homeless American citizen, instead of funding the US proxy war with Russia, you could give every homeless person around $308,000. Or we could take that money and reinstitute mental health facilities or drug rehab facilities for the homeless, giving them a chance to get clean, get a job, and earn housing. The United States needs to put its American citizens first and spend money inside the border on its American citizens where it's most needed. I love living in Florida and seeing laws like this get passed that protect taxpayers and the people contributing to society that fund all these city, state, and federal programs. But believe me, I don't want you to think that I'm looking down on the homeless or anyone that's in a bad situation. I've had my own problems. I started drinking every day when I was 15 years old, and it took me up until I was 36 years old to quit. And if I hadn't quit, I wouldn't be alive today to talk to you. Now, I knew every single day of my life I needed to quit, but I wasn't ready. And I would tell people, do not talk to me about quitting drinking. I'll never do it. Thank goodness at 36 years old, I knew I had to change my life. But this was not something that anyone could have made me do on their own, no matter how much they love me. And it's the same situation with a lot of people out there living on the streets. They need to be ready to quit or change their life on their terms. We just need programs in place for when and if they're ready to make the change. This new law will make it more difficult and unappealing to be homeless, which is tough love, but I believe it's gonna help people make the decision to change faster so we can get them the help they need. At least I hope. So remember, if you live in Florida and your city is not enforcing the no sleeping on public property law, you're entitled to file a lawsuit against the city starting January 1st, 2025. Hopefully the cities in Florida have it all figured out by then and it won't be necessary. But keep in mind, it's your right to hold them accountable. I also want to mention it's election time in San Francisco, so I see they're starting to make some changes. They're starting to pass laws to not allow people to camp on public property. Do you think it's because they're tired of seeing their city look like a shithole, or because they want to get reelected? Either way, they're copying Florida's great policies. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video. That lets YouTube know you found this video valuable and they'll share it with more people. I got another video right here I know you're gonna love. Click this video and I'll see you there.